Let's talk a little bit about Mitch Heil. On September 26, 2017, Mitch Heil returned to the Dutch and Royce show to share his thoughts on Eric Nelson's A Gray State, a documentary film alleging David Crowley murdered his wife and child before taking his own life. It's really strange watching a documentary about your best friend who basically went nuts, Heil explained to Dutch and Royce, and it's like you're watching the slow collapse of somebody progressing. Just like the Apple Valley Police Department in Eric Nelson's movie, Mitch Heil did not provide any evidence to prove David was guilty, but seemed to accept the official theory soon after the alleged double murder-suicide happened at 1051 Ramsdale Drive. Mitch stated that David recorded everything, which made me wonder how much video footage the Apple Valley Police Department actually went through and why they were unable to find any evidence to prove David Crowley was guilty in all the terabytes of data found. So after going through the 16 terabytes of data found inside of David's house, the police clarified that they found no motive that would lead them to understand why David Crowley was guilty. Of course, there have been reports that police did not access the terabytes of video, but I find that highly unlikely. The police have already confirmed that they have looked at all of the videos. Perhaps the police officers of the Apple Valley Police Department did not go through the videos, but someone in the authority role should have before assuming what happened at the Crowley house sometime between December 25th, 2014 and January 17th, 2015. Without a motive and without providing evidence to the public, the Apple Valley Police Department accused David of being guilty almost immediately and then quietly closed the case 1 year after the alleged double murder-suicide. David meticulously kept journals of everything for the longest time, Heil continued. Heil also discussed the concept of gray state. It's basically a jizz fest of all conspiracy theories mixed into one. Joking about the murders right after they happened was just how Mitch Heil dealt with his friend's tragedy. It's normal for him. That's just how I cope with things. Heil then clarified his role in making the Gray State movie trailer back in 2012. It was just 3 of us. It was me and David and this other guy, Danny Mason. I did camera, I did props, I did makeup, I did lighting, I did producing things, I did set design, basically anything other than being the director are things that I had a hand in at one point or another. David's family gave Eric Nelson all of David's private home videos because according to Mitch, first of all, what are they going to do with it? And then second is, I guess it's kind of a way to humanize him, or just not to say he was a monster. I'm not sure why anyone would attempt to humanize someone who they believed murdered his 5-year-old daughter, but maybe that's just me. Mitch Heil ended his relationship with the Gray State Project when it was no longer financially viable to stay involved, and by that I mean I was like 2 months away from being homeless. David was focused on the Gray State franchise and there were no outside project to bring in any revenue, according to Mitch Heil. Another reason Mitch Heil left the project was because he told David, quote, "Conspiracy theories are fucking stupid. I don't mesh with this whole movie, so I can't do it anymore." Mitch Heil also pointed out that it was normal for David to disappear while writing for weeks at a time. I think that is a very important point regardless of where you stand on the allegations against Crowley. Then I believe Mitch lied about Dan Hennon and myself. Dan and I were both interviewed for Eric Nelson's Sloppumentary on June 4, 2016, prior to conducting one of our YouTube discussions on the allegations against David Crowley. I had high hopes for Eric Nelson's documentary in the beginning. I don't anymore. Those high hopes faded as soon as I watched the documentary for myself, and really, a little bit before that. Mitch stated that Eric Nelson's film had 2 hardcore conspiracy theorists who still think that David was killed by the government in the documentary, and they were doing a Skype session back and forth. And all the filmmaker did was let them talk to each other over Skype and show how fucking stupid they are. He didn't even have to say anything to them. It was pretty funny. Now what I find funny is how Mitch Heil lied about us. Calling someone a hardcore conspiracy theorist is often used to deflect from a real conversation and avoid the real issues. In my opinion, Mitch Heil lied when he stated Dan and I think that the government killed David. We don't have an answer as to what really happened, and I don't see any facts that prove David was killed by the government. I see lots of speculation about that possibility, but I also see lots of speculation about David's guilt. We should always go where the evidence leads us. One would have to be stupid not to realize that by now. Mitch, a little research, buddy. It goes a long way. And I would debate you on this case whenever you are ready. Just make sure you bring some facts. Spoiler alert about Eric Nelson's film, you won't see any facts given by police to prove David Crowley is guilty. Why? Because of the lack of evidence police found to prove their theory. It's that simple. All you are given is more speculation to support a weak theory. Mitch also lied when he stated that all the filmmaker did was let them talk to each other over Skype and show how fucking stupid they are. 1 hour before the Google Hangout / YouTube session, not Skype, between Dan and myself, we were both separately interviewed by separate film crews, one of which Eric Nelson was present for. Eric Nelson spent close to an hour asking Dan Hinton questions about the alleged double murder-suicide, and at a family location, Robert Erickson interviewed me in California. So before everyone got to see how stupid Dan and I were live on YouTube, Eric Nelson was inside Dan's home asking him questions. Also, if the intent was to show how stupid Dan and I were, why didn't Eric Nelson include more of the conversation in his documentary? Perhaps Eric Nelson avoided our input because it would raise more questions about the official theory. I hope not, because that is what I thought his documentary was going to do. I thought it was going to show the people the evidence to prove David was guilty and let the people decide for themselves. Instead, the movie simply veered away from the real issues and focused elsewhere. Several people told us once we see the movie, we will have a different perspective of David's final days. Perhaps we will. But if the movie cannot prove David is guilty, then the movie is a waste of time. And I think we have now shown the movie is a waste of time. Now, we all know, for all of you who do research, wasting time is a part of that research. So it just comes with the territory. Some of the things that we're researching are going to be a waste of time. You still have to research it, you still have to look at it, but it's still a waste of time. I wonder if Mitch Heil is avoiding the facts, or lack thereof, that supposedly prove David is guilty. What would one have to see to be convinced their best friend was guilty of a double murder-suicide? Mitch, what convinced you David was guilty? You once stated that Gray State killed your best friend. Is there any chance you will be part of the Gray State team moving forward with David's fictional movie? If making Gray State sent David to a dark place, as AVPD Chief John Reichel told Tom Lydon, then perhaps no one should move forward with the project. What do you think? Mitch felt the documentary was done as respectfully as it could be done, adding he didn't feel anything was taken out of context. We'll see about that. Is it respectful to accuse David Crowley of a crime without addressing the facts or lack thereof? When it came to David's meeting with Hollywood executives, Mitch explained that David was concerned about losing certain rights to the Gray State franchise. We know Danny August Mason was not willing to give up his rights to the movie project. We see that now as Danny Mason tried to move forward with the fictional Gray State film. Luckily, it looks like that has failed, although the copyright for the script is coming up in June 2019. The only other interesting thing Heil was asked about was the alleged pack theory, and I felt Mitch chose his words very carefully. He was unsure of how much Kamel believed the conspiracy theories David believed in. Overall, it's an interesting 30 minutes provided by Mitch Heil that is worth listening to. After listening to Mitch Heil's conversation, I felt that he was building a movie while David was building a franchise.